Do you want to know what I hate? Having a slow computer that's slow to start up, slow when rendering, slow when watching a goddamn video. Not just being slow, but crashing. Crashing when you're working on a model, just modeling along, all happy, dandy, and then all of a sudden it just crashes out of nowhere and you lose hours of unsaved work. We've all been there, and it frickin' sucks. Now there are tons of reasons why this could be happening, and everyone's computer is going to be different. So I've decided to round up the most common issues that it comes to with architectural computers. Now my dad was in the computer business for 20 plus years and he's taught me a couple of things along the way. It's gonna be a bit of a nerdy video considering that it's going to be talking about computers and laptops and hardware and software. But I think it's going to be really, really helpful for architectural students. And if you have no previous knowledge of computers, it's going to be okay because we're going to walk through this step by step, and there's going to be some real practical tips and steps that you can do to get your computer running faster, crashing less, and being a lot better. This video is going to be a bit of a long one, but by the end of it, you should have your computer running like brand spanking frickin' new.
But I have to stay afloat. It's noisy. Be a person you don't want. Can somebody take me other thing? Going to do. Where's the life? Where's my shot? Is this called living?
So let's get started. First off, painting your PC red won't make it go faster, just in case you wanted to try that. Slapping your computer might work, but I don't recommend it. And you can always spend money upgrading your GPU, your graphics processing unit, or your CPU, your RAM, adding better hard drives and disk drives and whatever it might be. Hell, you could throw away your old computer and just buy a brand spanking new one. But we're architecture students. Do you think we've got money for that? The thing is, there's nothing wrong with your computer, it's totally fine. Well, probably not at the moment if you clicked on this video, but it will be. You just need to follow along with these tips to get it going lightning fast, like when you took it out of the box for the first time. So the first problem is that you have too many startup programs. Too many programs starting up when you first load your computer. Most of the time, this will cause your computer to slow down when starting up because all its resources are being used starting up unnecessary programs that are starting up in the background. And this is the biggest cause why your computer struggles to start up. Now, you could go to Task Manager and just quit these programs when you start up your computer, or you could attack it from the source and just stop them completely from starting up when you start up your computer. All you have to do if you're on Windows is press Control Shift Escape to go to Task Manager, go over to Startup. I recommend not turning off anything that you're unsure about. If it says Windows in its name or it seems like it's something important, don't delete it. I recommend only deleting stuff that you are pretty sure is just random shit. Now, as you can see, I've got most of my programs disabled. However, if we flick the status of these to show all of the enabled ones, we can have a look at what's actually starting up when we start our computer. Now, first of all, the Windows security notification, that's something I like to have starting up with it, so I'm gonna leave that as enabled, and you can see that the startup impacts medium. So if this is something that you don't use, then feel free to disable it. This is my week. This is something I got to start up. It's an Excel spreadsheet that shows up when I start up my computer, and so I want to keep that obviously. My Focusrite notifier, this is something I need for my microphone to work. This other stuff is all fine, but then we go down to the Autodesk desktop app. This is taking up quite a bit of resources. Its startup impact is high and I don't actually use this, so I'm going to go ahead and disable this from starting up when I start up my computer. Now, everything else for me is fine. Now, a little bonus tip: if your computer is still slow to start up, I recommend cleaning up your desktop, because everything on your desktop is going to impact how quickly your computer is going to be starting up. I usually keep my desktop pretty tidy. At the moment, it is not. I will actually clean through this myself, and I recommend you guys only having, say, your recycle bin on your desktop and maybe a couple of shortcuts if you need it. Everything else should be neatly stored into files and folders, and should be just organized neatly. Another thing you can do is type in startup apps and hit enter there, and you can easily just turn off and on anything that you don't use, and that's just another way of getting around it rather than using Task Manager. And you can also clean startup services. So this is just looking at programs. You can actually clean startup services as well, which is a bit different using, let me get this right, it's services.msc in run. So we've got to type up run, we'll hit enter on that, and we want to type up services.msc. And this might look a little bit scary with all of these kind of things here, but I've already run through this, and really I'm just turning off anything that I think is not going to be useful for startup. Now I wouldn't touch anything that's, you know, Intel or Nvidia or AMD, things like that. Definitely don't touch anything that's Microsoft. But there are some things like Xbox accessories. I don't have Xbox with anything to do with this computer, so I can just disable these things from starting when I start up my computer. And so this is just another way to speed up your startup time. Just, you know, be cautionary when you are stopping things from starting up. Now, next up, we're going to be looking at some reasons for having a slow computer in general. We've now fixed the startup speed. Hopefully, you've cleaned up your desktop and you've cleaned up your startup apps. Now, why is your computer running slow when you're working on other programs? The biggest reason for this is because you've got too much bloat on your computer. There's just too much shit in your computer, and you need to get rid of that shit for it to work properly. Now, the first thing you can do is go through all of your files and delete anything you don't use, any unnecessary bloat that is no use to you. The number one thing is to make sure your disks are always under 15% of their maximum storage space. So as you can see, all of my bars here are blue, which is good. And this is my hard drive here. This is another one of my hard drives, and this is the solid state drive I use for my computer. So these are my external drives for storage. If I ever see these getting within, say, the red space at the end and they're coming towards their full space, I have to clean them up. Otherwise, for starters, it's going to be slowing down those hard drives because it takes a lot of time to read them and write them. And also it's going to be damaging your hard drives because it's going to be working a lot harder to make sure they're getting and reading and writing the right files. So that's the first thing you can do, is just clean up any unnecessary media or movies or music you have on your computers or on your hard drives, and just delete anything you don't use. Then what I recommend is downloading a program called CCleaner. And some people don't like this, some people do. I've used this for pretty much my whole life. My dad got me into it, 10, 15 years ago. This thing is bloody brilliant. What you can do is scan your computer, and it looks for all the shit files and all the duplicate files and all the hidden files that you can't usually see that are taking up all your space, and it will delete them. You can do a proper health check, or I just like to do a custom clean, and I can choose everything it deletes, and you'll be surprised. Things like your Microsoft Edge or your Mozilla Firefox, whatever internet browser you're using, they store a lot of data, and you can have, hundreds of gigabytes of just shit being stored, like old download history and old session data and cookies and internet cache and history, all of that good, not good stuff, all that bad stuff. And so what CCleaner does is it's free, and it just cleans out all that shit for you. All you have to do is hit analyze, and this usually takes a couple of minutes. Really analyzing it's really quick. As you can see, there's 15 gigabytes I can just get rid of instantly right now. So if I just click run cleaner, that's just gonna get rid of all of that shit. And it's not like it's deleting anything that I need. It's not deleting files that I need. It's just cleaning out all of the crap. And so there goes 15 gigabytes of random crap. And you can also clean through your registry and look for issues. Now, as you can see, these are all these unused file extensions which are causing bloat. And so I'm just scanning through them by going from registry and scanning the registry. And then I'm going to delete all of these issues, or fix all of the selected issues. And then I'm going to close that. Now, another thing you can do is go to your actual hard drive, and you can right click it. This is on Windows. It might be a little bit different for Mac, but you can go to properties, and then you can do disk cleanup. Now what this is going to do, as you can see, I've just cleaned up my drive using CCleaner. You can then clean through your hard drives and get rid of any unnecessary shit. Now I've just clicked clean, and that would usually clean it. So I recommend doing that for all of your external and internal hard drives. What you can also do is optimize and defragment your drive. I've got this scheduled to do it, I think weekly, so I don't need to do it. But what this does, defragmentation, and it just cleans up your hard drive to get rid of all of those unnecessary files. It's just another way of optimizing your hard drives. There are also some programs such as, I think it's defrag or something, on, if you just type up defragmenter for computer or something, there are some programs you can download and they will defrag your computer and just clean it up. I don't recommend getting too much software. CCleaner is probably all you need. As I mentioned before, it's free and it does the job perfectly. Just get it because it will save you a lot of time. So another thing you can do with CCleaner, which is why I love it so much, is you can go to tools and you can uninstall programs that you can see you don't use. And you know, sometimes you're installing new programs and then it installs a bunch of other programs with it and you're like, where the hell did this all come from? And so it's just good to get rid of anything you don't use, uninstall anything you don't use. I've recently done this, so there shouldn't be anything in here that I don't use. Maybe Digicam control can go, so I can just click on that and click uninstall. Yes, I want to uninstall this product. This takes a couple of seconds, but once this is done, then it's going to be uninstalled on my computer, and then it just leaves me a bit more room. And I think that's something as well. Mies van der Rohe was correct when he was saying less is more. Don't just keep programs that you haven't used in months or weeks. If you haven't used it in a month, I would get rid of it. It's really not hard to reinstall programs, so I wouldn't be stingy when it comes to uninstalling things. Just get rid of it if you haven't used it in over a month. Again, don't get rid of anything that's Microsoft or perhaps anything that's Windows or Intel. I don't think there would be anything like that in there. Don't get rid of Nvidia. But I think you'll also notice that there are a lot of Microsoft programs that come with your computer, like a lot of games like Solitaire and Snake, and you're like, why the frick do I have this on my computer? So just uninstall it, get rid of it, and clean up your computers. Just cleaning up your hard drives alone is going to make your computers run so much faster. So this is something that you can do practically right now. So just do it. Clean up your startup programs, clean up your bloat, get rid of all the shit, and you're going to be finding it's running so much faster. Now, we are only getting started. I've got so many more tips for you, so just stick around. Your computer's running absolutely. You're going to be so much organized, so much more organized, and it's going to be so much better. So just stick with me. And because there's just so much to answer all of your questions, if you have a problem in this video, just Google it. That's what I do. Just Google it and you're going to find answers for your specific problems. So if you come across an issue, I can help you out in the comments below. I've got a little bit of knowledge with computers, but just Google it, give it a go, and share your ideas as well in the comments below. If you find a problem and you find a solution. Now, when it comes to cleaning bloat, prevention is always better than the cure. So when you are installing programs in the future, just make sure you're going through those installation screens carefully. You're not clicking, yes, I want to install these random 6 programs which I didn't sign up for. Make sure you're unticking those boxes and just make sure you're being careful when it comes to installing random shit. Now, tip number 3, this is a huge one. Make sure that your operating system, number 1, make sure your operating system is up to date. Number 2, make sure your drivers are up to date. So your CPU driver and your graphics card driver, your sound drivers, as well as your applications, your programs in your computer. Make sure everything is up to date. This isn't just for speed, but also for security. Viruses and malware, which I'll talk about in a little bit, they target older operating systems or outdated programs and software. Now, just like everything we've already been over, you can automatically schedule things to update, and you can automatically schedule CCleaner to clean out your system and stuff like that. If you do have automatic updates on, just make sure you're running them at times you're not using a computer, because updating things can cause issues when you're working on something, and it can also slow down your workflow because it's taking up your resources to update something rather than you being able to work on a program. So just make your automatic updates run during times you're not using your computer. Now, number 4, this is also a big one. These are all big, so I'm not going to keep saying that, but your hardware is probably dirty. Now we're stepping away from the screen and the software side of things, and we're looking at the hardware, because your hardware might be perfectly fine. It's probably just dirty. Dust and grime really slows down your computer. It causes all your fans to work slower and it blocks them, and it causes your computer to overheat, and all your hardware starts overheating. Therefore, it starts throttling harder and it's taking up more resources, and you have less resources for what you want to work on. If your computer is noisy, whether it be a laptop or a PC, if it's making noises, then it's a good sign your hardware is dirty. All you have to do is grab a couple of alcohol swabs, maybe some lint-free paper towel or cotton buds, and just take apart your computer and start cleaning it. You don't have to take it apart. That's not what I really meant, but just open her up, clean through it. Sometimes just blowing through the side of your laptop fans and stuff, you'll see so much dust just coming out, and that's going to be dust slowing down your computer. Just give it a clean. Look up a tutorial probably how to clean your specific computer, but it would just involve cleaning up all the dust from it. A couple of things to note before you do it: don't use a vacuum cleaner. Make sure you're using like canned air or air compressor. Just be gentle when touching things. Make sure you ground yourself as well before touching any hardware. That just involves holding onto a piece of metal while you're touching electronic things, otherwise the static is going to burn out those pieces. So just be careful when you're doing what you're doing. Look up a couple of tutorials on how to clean your hardware. It's really not difficult. If you just spend 30 minutes doing it, it's going to save you so much time. It's going to stop your computer from burning out, and you're going to have to replace it in a couple of months. But yeah, clean out your hardware. Definitely do that. Number 5 is following on from this last tip. If your CPU is getting hot, your computer is going to be a lot worse than what it can be. If your CPU is getting hot, it's just having restricted airflow, usually because your fan isn't cooling down your CPU properly. Now, this is usually more than likely from dust being built up in your CPU fan. Because your fan's not working, this can then start to make your thermal paste on your CPU start to burn away. And this is the paste that allows your CPU to cool. Without the thermal paste, your fan's doing literally nothing. Even if it's spinning at lightning speed, there's no thermal paste on it, it's not going to be cooling down anything. So when that paste dries up, it's going to cause your CPU to over throttle again and not work at its full potential. And the CPU is pretty much the heart of your computer. You do not want that malfunctioning. Now, I highly recommend buying some thermal paste. If you're cleaning out your CPU anyways, you're going to have to pull it apart and put more thermal paste on it because you can't put it back together without thermal paste. It costs a couple of bucks, and it's going to make a huge difference on the way your CPU runs. Trust me when I say, even if you think you've got a pretty brand new computer, I would probably take the fan off, have a look at it, apply some more thermal paste. All you have to do is clean the CPU surface and the fan surface with an alcohol swab, drink a swig of that alcohol yourself, and then put a pea-sized amount of this paste onto the CPU and put it back together. Okay, so moving on from hardware, we're going back into the computer, and we're going to be talking about viruses and malware. If your computer is infected, it will take up resources that you could be using for something else. Majority of the time, you won't know if you've got a virus because they tend to hide themselves inside other files and hidden files, and if you've got a virus, it can be a mess of a shitty time. Windows computers come with threat and malware virus protection. Most of the time they don't do the job completely and you need other software. What I'm using at the moment is Avast antivirus. I think it's pretty well perfect. It does the job for me. Now, you don't want more than one antivirus program because they can cause issues with each other by conflicting with each other. Literally one is perfect. It's not like the more antivirus programs you have, the better. One is all you need. You just need a good one. Again, this isn't going to cost any money. You just have to get a free version of it. What I would do though as well is download malware, buy it as a one-time scan kind of thing, and then uninstall it once you do a scan. This would check for any malware, which is different from viruses. I would recommend running a virus scan, a malware scan, and CCleaner automatically once a week. Again, prevention is always better than the cure. Don't click on shady websites, don't click on fishy emails, and don't download spooky files. I've had a couple of viruses before. It's no fun at all. Sometimes antivirus programs can pick up on it and get rid of it once you've already gotten that virus. Sometimes if you've got a really bad virus, you just have to completely wipe your computer back to factory settings, and you can lose all of that data that you have on your computer. This is also a reminder to keep backups of all of your computer data because it is no fun. Like, I can't even imagine losing all of my uni work and all of my website work and everything I've done on my computers. That would suck, and you can probably relate to that. Imagine losing all of your project's work. Not fun at all. Now, if your computer is running really slow and your antivirus isn't picking up on any viruses, it could be just a really bad virus that's hiding itself. You know, the solution is to just wipe your computer, but then you lose all your files. So if you don't want to do that, just keep following along with this video. And it's not worth backing up a computer that's got viruses on it because those viruses will follow all of the things you back up. So once you've got a virus, you kind of have to just wipe it if the antivirus isn't getting rid of it. And once you do a clean install, only download files and programs you need, and you can just start again minimalistically, get rid of all of the shit, and just keep it simple. Now this is a hardware solution number 7, and that's to run your computer off of a solid state drive, which is similar to a hard drive, but like 50 times better. It's a lot more modern technology. What you can do is keep all of your files on an external hard drive because they're a lot cheaper, but then just run your computer off of a solid state drive. This is also known as an SSD, and this will madly improve the loading speed of your files and the way your computer runs if you're running off of an SSD. If you're running off a hard drive, you're in the stone ages and you need to update, so just get an SSD. Now this is a tip for hardware again. If you want to find out how good your hardware actually is, as in your CPU, your GPU, your hard drives, your standard solid disk drives I should say, what you can do is actually use a benchmark program to test and see how it stands up against all the other hardware out there. What I do is use passmark.com, and you can actually then benchmark and see. It runs your computer at pretty much maximum capacity and it tests how good your hardware is, and then it will give you a score and it rates you against all the other hardware out there. So it will show maybe your hard drive is in the top 65th percentile, or your RAM is in the lowest 18th percentile, I should say. And you can then see kind of where you're lacking and what kind of hardware that is worth upgrading. And if you find that your computer is still slow after doing everything so far, what you can do is find out what hardware is bottlenecking your computer. You can find out what hardware is the limiting factor which is slowing it down. So all you have to do is go to Task Manager, and what you can do from here is then when you're running your computer and you're, say, rendering a program, you might see that your CPU is running at 100%, or your memory is running at 100% and your CPU is only running at 20%. So if that was the case, then you would know that your RAM is slowing everything down, your memory is slowing everything down, because that's running at its maximum capacity, whereas the CPU was only 20%. So it might be worth upgrading your RAM then, because that's the limiting factor for how fast your computer is. Your computer is a mix of components like an engine, and if there's one thing in an engine that is slow, then it will slow down the whole system. And so that's kind of like what your computer's like. If there's one thing slowing your computer down, it's going to be slowing everything else and bringing everything else back. So it might be worth upgrading the worst things first and then upgrading everything else as you go along and get more money. So if you find that your RAM is running at 100% and your CPU is running at 20%, I would first clean your RAM, and there are videos on how to clean RAM on YouTube. It's really simple. Once you clean it, it's still running slow and you've slotted it in properly, then it might be worth upgrading that RAM. This is a quick one, number 9, which is to go from power saver to high performance. All you have to do is go to battery, power and sleep settings. That's what I'm typing up here. And you can go to additional power settings. And as you can see, I'm on high performance. I was originally on power saver, and it saves the energy you use, sure, but high performance is so much faster. And you can buy a brand new computer, put it on power saver, you'll find it's running slow as hell, and you can clean up your computer as much as you want and you'll be like, why is this brand new computer still slow? It's got good hardware, it's running, it should run really well, why is it slow? And if you change this to high performance from power saver, you'll probably find that it runs like crazy, so much better. And that's all you have to do is just change this to high performance. So next up, we've got some practical things you can do to check your drive health and to check how healthy your computer is and how healthy your RAM is and your memory, check for errors. So I've got a couple of things that you can do which are really practical, and you should probably follow along with me. I wouldn't do this right now while watching the video. I would come back to it because it might involve having to restart your computer. Let me just go through it and then you can write it down or you can follow along afterwards. So the first thing to do is to go open up your command prompt, and I'm going to just type in CMD into my search bar, hit enter, and this looks a little bit scary because now we're messing with a computer, but it's really simple. All we're going to be doing is typing WMIC, and this is going to check the drive health and the status of the drive. You hit enter, then all you want to do is type disk drive get status, and you can see all of the statuses of my disk drives are okay. If one of these come up with an error, and that's when you know that there's a problem with your disk drive, and I won't be able to fix this myself because I have no idea how you would have to go around fixing that. But then now you know what the issue is, and you can go look it up on Google, YouTube and figure it out for yourself. If it says anything other than okay, then one of your drives is having an issue, and this is usually something you can't fix. You just have to replace your hard drive. Another thing you can do is type up CMD again, and you can do, or you can check for drive errors. All you have to do is type check disk or CHKDSK, and then hit space, and then the drive you want to check the disk of. So if you want to check your C drive, you would type /C. Now it won't actually let me do this at the moment because I'm not in my admin mode, but this should fix some errors. You can also just type CHKDSK check disk, and it will usually just run it for you then. And it will fix any errors on your drives. Now you can also check if any system files are corrupt or missing. You can also attempt to repair them by just simply going back to CMD. If you type CFC /scan now and hit enter, as you can see, you have to be an administrator. I'm not running my administrator mode at the moment, so that's why I can't do these things. But if you type that and it gives you an error message, it will give you an error code, and you can just go into Google, type up that code, and find solutions for it. Again, there are a lot of different error codes, and I'm not going to be able to help you with that. At least you know then what's wrong with your computer. Now, the final practical thing I've got for you in CMD is to check for memory errors, because your memory is actually, you know, it can cause a lot of weird and unrelated problems that you wouldn't think is your memory. I've actually had a lot of issues with my memory in the past, and I didn't realize it was my memory. It was things like my screen going black at times, and my computer actually got into a phase where it would start starting up when I clicked the on button, and then it would just power off, and it would just get into this cycle of trying to turn on, but it wouldn't turn on. And that was because I was using, well, I had RAM issues. And so this memory checker actually just fixes and checks all the things for you. It's really simple. All you have to do is go to If it does tell you that there's something wrong, it's worth cleaning your RAM, making sure they're seated properly in your computer. Make sure there are no fingerprints or dirt or grime on your RAM sticks, and you can clean them off with an eraser, just your classic eraser, or rubber as we call it in Australia. Once you've cleaned it and then you've seated it properly, that can actually fix a majority, like 80% of the problems that are wrong with your computer. If the RAM is bad, the only thing you can do is replace it, but it's really easy to do yourself. You don't have to pay someone heaps of money to do it. You just have to order the right RAM online by typing in your, say, your motherboard and then finding what RAM you need. And then once you've found out what RAM you can take, you can just order online and then look up a tutorial for installing it. It takes 2 minutes and your computer should run as new. Now, we've been through 10 things to fix a computer. This has been a long video and I hope you've stuck with me. I've got one bonus tip for you, which is if you have to get to the point where you're upgrading, I want to give you the order for what you should buy first with your money. If you have decided that you want to upgrade your hardware, I would do it in this order. First of all, I would make sure that I've got an SSD, and I would make sure that my computer is running off of an SSD before upgrading anything else. That is top priority, to have an SSD. Number 2, I would get more RAM if your computer can handle it. So say if you've got 2 8GB sticks, that would mean you've got 16GB of RAM, but if you've got 4 slots, you can get 2 more of those sticks so that you can have 32GB of RAM. The more RAM you have, the faster it will be running, and it's worth maybe doing that upgrade if you can. Otherwise, if you've only got 2 slots and you've got 2 8GB sticks in there already, you can upgrade by getting 2 16GB sticks. And so that's the second thing I would upgrade before anything else. It would be to upgrade the RAM. RAM is also known as memory, for those that don't know that. I would especially upgrade RAM if you've got 8GB or less. And that's the good thing about C Cleaner, is that you can check kind of what your computer is using, and you can see I've got 32GB of RAM, which I upgraded myself. Super easy to do, but I used to run 16GB. Once I went to 32, it renders a lot quicker, I can work a lot quicker, and it's just a whole lot better. Now, the third thing I would upgrade in order is to get a better CPU, because this is what is limiting how fast you can render. But it's worth noting that it's only worth upgrading if it really is slowing your process down. If your CPU is running at 100% when you're doing a task and your RAM's running at 20%, I would think about upgrading the CPU before the RAM. So guys, thank you so much. That was a long ass video. I Didn't even get to finish my coffee, damn it, now it's cold. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something out of this video. Having a fast computer, it really does make a big difference. If you're spending 2 hours working on a project when it could be done in an hour, just having a fast computer is gonna make your life so much easier, so much better. If you guys do have any questions, I'm always happy to help. Please do just leave a comment down below. Make sure you leave a like on the video. It always does help out. If you haven't hit subscribe already, make sure you do that as well. Let me know if you like these kind of computer videos. I've done a couple of videos about how to find out what computer to buy, or how to find out if you need a laptop for architecture school. But if you like these kind of computer-based videos, let me know. I can make a couple more of them. If you have any ideas for future videos, please do share that with me as well. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.